The research ship Gentle Current drifted through the empty darkness of space like a dying whale in an endless ocean. Its sleek blue hull, designed to cut through water rather than vacuum, looked out of place among the cold stars. "Inside, Captain?" Veltar pressed his webbed hands against the control panel and felt his heart sink with each failing system alert that flashed across the screens. "Life support at 30% and dropping," reported his communications officer, Nixara, her voice barely a whisper through the ship's thinning atmosphere. The Zephyrian's gill slits fluttered with each labored breath as she struggled to process the toxic air that now filled their vessel. Veltar looked around at his crew of 12 scientists and researchers. They had been on a peaceful mission too. Studied the unique crystal formations in this sector when their main engine had exploded without warning. Now they were stranded in the void, their ship's systems failing one by one like dominoes falling in slow motion. "How long do we have?" Veltar asked, though he dreaded the answer. Science Officer Kethris checked his readings twice before responding. "If we can reduce our activity to minimum levels, perhaps 18 hours, maybe 20 if we are lucky," whose blue-scaled skin had already begun to pale, a sure sign of oxygen deprivation in their species. The captain's large, dark eyes surveyed his dying crew. These were not soldiers or explorers. They were gentle beings who studied plant life and mineral formations, healed sick creatures, and cataloged new species for the Galactic Council's database. None of them had ever imagined they would die alone in the darkness between stars. "Young researcher?" Lenara raised her trembling hand. "Captain, there is something else. We are drifting toward the border of the human territory." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Every Zephyrian knew about humans. The Galactic Council had classified them as Class 5 Deathworlders after studying their home planet. Earth was a nightmare world of violent weather, deadly creatures, and toxic environments that would kill most civilized species within hours. The beings that evolved there were naturally aggressive, territorial, and dangerous. "How close are we to their space?" Veltar asked, trying to keep the fear from his voice. Lenara checked her navigation console. "We will cross into their territory in approximately 4 hours. There is a human colony system about 6 hours beyond that point." Kethris made a sound that was part laugh and part sob. "So we have a choice. We can die from system failure, or we can drift into human space and be destroyed by Deathworlders. They might not even notice us," whispered another crew member. "Perhaps we will simply drift past their worlds and die in peace." But Nixara shook her head. "The humans monitor their borders carefully. They will detect us long before we reach their inner systems." She paused, her gills fluttering faster. "If we send a distress signal, they would definitely know we are here." The idea hung in the air like poison. Send a signal to the humans. Ask the most dangerous species in known space for help. It seemed like madness. "What do we know about human behavior?" Veltar asked, grasping for any information that might help then make this impossible decision. Kethris accessed his data files with shaking fingers. "They are extremely territorial. They fight constant wars among themselves on their homeworld. Their planet has weather patterns that can destroy entire cities. And yet they build their settlements directly in the path of these disasters. They consume the flesh of other creatures for nutrition, even when other food sources are available. They also," Lenara added quietly, "have never attacked another species without provocation. The Council records show no incidents of unprovoked human aggression against alien vessels. That we know of," Kethris countered. "How many ships have simply disappeared after encountering humans? How would we know if they attack and leave no survivors?" Nixara's console beeped weakly. "Life support at 25%. To make a decision soon, if we are going to make one at all." Veltar closed his eyes and tried to think. His crew was dying around him. Their ship would become their tomb in a matter of hours. The only possibly inhabited system within range belonged to creatures that every civilized species feared. But what choice did they have? "The distress signal would be broadcast on standard emergency frequencies," Nixara explained when asked. "Any ship in the area would receive it, along with our position and the nature of our emergency. And then they would come, Kethris said grimly. Humans in their warships, wondering what valuable cargo or technology they might salvage from? Our corpses. But Lenara looked up from her console with something that might have been hope. Captain, I have been reviewing the human files. There is something interesting. The Council's reports mention that humans have a concept they call rescue operations. When their own people are in danger, they will risk many lives to save even a single individual. They seem to have a cultural imperative to help those in distress. Their own people, Kethris emphasized. Not alien species they have never encountered before. The ship shuddered slightly as another system failed. The lights flickered, and for a moment they were plunged into darkness before the emergency power engaged. 15%, Nixara reported, her voice barely audible now. Veltar looked at each of his crew members. They were scholars and scientists who had dedicated their lives to understanding the universe and sharing that knowledge with others. They had families waiting for them at home, children who would never see their parents again, search projects that would remain unfinished. Nixara, he said finally, his voice steady despite the terror in his hearts. Prepare a standard distress signal. Include our species identification, the nature of our emergency, and our current life support status. Captain Kethris protested, you are condemning us all. Better to die with dignity than to be torn apart by Deathworlders. We are already dying, Veltar replied. At least this way we have a chance. However small. Nixara's fingers moved. Across her console, preparing the message that would either save them or seal their doom. The signal is ready, Captain. Should I transmit? Veltar took one last look around his bridge, at his crew of gentle beings who had never hurt anyone in their lives, at the screens showing the vast emptiness of space surrounding them, at the flashing alerts that marked the countdown to their deaths. Send it, he said. The signal went out into the darkness, racing at the speed of light toward the human territory. Somewhere in that direction, electronic sensors would detect their desperate plea for help. Somewhere in that vast emptiness, humans would learn that aliens were dying in their space. What they would do with that information, no one could predict. Signal transmitted, Nixara reported, then slumped forward in her chair. Exhausted by the effort now, all they could do was wait. Wait and hope that the monsters from the death world called Earth might have some small measure of mercy for strangers who had never done them any harm. The gentle current continued its slow drift through the void, carrying its dying crew toward an uncertain fate among the stars. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his third cup of coffee and reading reports about delayed shipments when the emergency signal came through. The bridge of the cargo freighter New Horizon was quiet, except for the steady hum of engines and the occasional beep from navigation systems. They were hauling mining equipment to the outer colonies, a routine run that Morrison had done dozens of times before. The distress signal cut through the normal radio chatter like a knife. Morrison nearly dropped his coffee mug as the alien voice filled the bridge, speaking in heavily accented Galactic standard. The translation system worked to convert the words, but the fear and desperation came through clearly in any language. This is Captain Veltar of the Zephyrian research vessel Gentle Current. We are experiencing critical system failures, life support failing, requesting immediate assistance from any vessel in range. Our position is... Coordinates followed. Along with technical details about their emergency, Morrison set down his mug and looked at his crew. Chief Engineer Lisa Brooks had stopped her equipment checks and was staring at the radio. Navigator Ben Walsh was already pulling up star charts on his screen. Communications specialist Rachel Stone had her headset on, trying to get a clearer signal. How far away are they? Morrison asked. Walsh checked his calculations twice. About 4 hours at maximum burn, Captain. But that's going to use most of our fuel reserves. What kind of ship is it? Brooks wanted to know. Zephyrian research vessel, Stone reported, her fingers dancing over a console. Civilian craft. No weapons. Crew of 12 according to their transmission. She paused. Captain, they sound really scared. Morrison stood up and walked to the main view screen, looking out at the stars. He had been hauling cargo between human colonies for 15 years. He knew the regulations. civilian vessels were not required to respond to distress calls outside human space. They could report the signal to Earth Command and continue on their way with clear consciences. But he also knew what it was like to be alone in space when things went wrong. 5 years ago, his ship had suffered a reactor leak in the middle of nowhere. If another freighter captain had not changed course to help them, Morrison and his crew would have died a slow death from radiation poisoning. Carlos, he called to his medical officer, who was in the galley getting lunch. Get up here. We might have patients coming aboard. Carlos Martinez hurried onto the bridge, still carrying a sandwich. He was not a real doctor, just a medic with basic training, but he was the closest thing they had to medical expertise. What kind of patients, Captain? Aliens, Morrison said simply. Zephyrians? Ever heard of them? Martinez shook his head. I know basic human medicine and a little about the other species that live in our space. But Zephyrians? No idea. Figure it out, Morrison ordered. Lisa, start calculating what we need to do to take on 12 passengers. Ben, plot a course to intercept them. Rachel, send a message back to them and tell them help is coming. His crew stared at him. Communications specialist Tony Clark, who had been quiet during the discussion, finally spoke up. Captain, are you sure about this? We don't know anything about these aliens. They could be dangerous. Morrison looked at Clark for a long moment. Tony, did that distress call sound dangerous to you? It sounded like people who are dying and need help. But they're not people, Clark protested. They're aliens. We don't know what they want or why they're really out here. What they want is to not die, Morrison said firmly. And the reason they're out here doesn't matter right now. Turned to Stone. Send that message. Stone nodded and began transmitting. Zephyrian vessel, Gentle Current. This is the human cargo ship, New Horizon. We have received your distress call and are changing course to assist. Estimated time to your position is 4 hours. Please respond with your current status. The response came back within minutes, but it was hard to understand. The alien voice was weaker now, and there was static on the line.
I knew.
Horizon, this is ... This is Gentle Current. Did you say human ship? Are you ... Are you really coming to help us? Morrison took the microphone from Stone. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the New Horizon. Yes, we are human, and yes, we are coming to help you. What is your current life support status? There was a long pause before the reply came. Captain Morrison, we have perhaps 12 hours of air remaining, maybe less. We did not expect. We were told that humans... You were told that humans are dangerous, Morrison finished. Maybe we are. But we're also the kind of dangerous that doesn't let people die when we can help them. While Morrison talked to the aliens, his crew was already working. Brooks had pulled up the ship's schematics and was calculating cargo space that could be converted to passenger areas. Martinez had accessed the ship's computer files, looking for any information about alien biology. Captain Brooks called out, We can make room for 12 passengers, but it won't be comfortable. We'll have to stack the mining equipment and cargo. Bay 3 and convert Bays 1 and 2 into living space. Do it, Morrison ordered. Ben, how are we doing on that course? In, Captain. But I have to tell you, we're going to arrive with maybe 6 hours of fuel left. Enough to get to the nearest station, but no margin for error. Morrison nodded. He would deal with fuel costs later. Carlos, what did you find? Martinez looked worried. Not much, Captain. Zephyrians are aquatic beings. They need high humidity and specific temperature ranges. Their atmosphere is different. From ours, more moisture, different gas mix, and if they're injured, ... double quotes, he shrugged helplessly. I'm not sure how much I can do for them. You'll figure it out, Morrison said with confidence he did not entirely feel. Rachel, try to establish better communication with them. See if you can get more details about their condition and what they need. Over the next hour, the crew of the New Horizon worked to prepare for their unexpected passengers. Brooks rearranged cargo and jury-rigged environmental systems in the empty bays. Martinez contacted Earth Command's medical database, trying to download any available information about Zephyrian physiology. Walsh fine-tuned their course to shave minutes off their arrival time. Stone managed to establish a clearer communication link with the dying ship. The news was not good. The Zephyrians were weakening rapidly as their life support systems continued to fail. 2 crew members had already lost consciousness, and the rest were struggling to stay alert.
Captain Morrison,
Came the weak voice of Veltar. May I ask why you are helping us? Your people and our people. We have never met before. We know your reputation in the galaxy. We were afraid to call for help. Morrison thought about that for a moment. What's our reputation? He asked. That you are ... dangerous, violent, that. You come from a world so harsh it should have killed you, and instead it made you into warriors. Morrison actually laughed at that. Well, that's partially true. Earth is a tough place, and we can be dangerous when we need to be. But being tough doesn't mean being cruel. Where I come from, when someone calls for help, you help them. That's simple, even if they are strangers, even if they are not your species. Especially then, Morrison said. Anyone can help their friends. It takes real strength to help strangers who can't pay you back. There was another long pause before Veltar responded. We may have been wrong about humans. Maybe Morrison agreed. But let's get you alive first, and then we can talk about it. As the New Horizon raced through space toward the dying alien ship, Morrison looked around at his crew. They had not hesitated when he made the decision to help. They had simply gotten to work, each doing their part to save lives they had never seen, beings they had never met. Maybe they were dangerous. Sometimes dangerous was exactly what the universe needed. The New Horizon dropped out of hyperspace with a shudder that ran through the entire ship. Captain Morrison gripped his chair as the viewscreen flickered to life, showing the dark void of space ahead. For a moment, he saw nothing but stars and emptiness. Their navigator Walsh pointed to a faint glimmer off to starboard. 2 degrees starboard, distance 8,000 kilometers. Morrison squinted at the screen until he could make out the shape of the alien vessel. The gentle current looked nothing like a human ship. Where human vessels were angular and practical, the alien craft was smooth and curved like a sea creature. Its hull was a pale blue color that seemed to shimmer in the starlight. It's beautiful, whispered communications specialist Stone. It's also dying. Chief Engineer Brooks added grimly. Look at those energy readings. They're running on emergency power only. Morrison opened the communication channel. Gentle current. This is Captain Morrison. We have visual contact with your vessel. What is your current status? The response was much weaker than before. Captain Morrison. Thank you for coming. We have perhaps 4 hours of air remaining. 3 of our crew are unconscious. The rest of us are. The voice faded for a moment. We are very weak. Officer Martinez had been studying data files for the past 3 hours. He looked up from his console with worry written across his face. Captain, we have problems. The Zephyrians breathe a different gas mixture than we do. They need much higher humidity, and their body temperature runs about 10 degrees cooler than humans. Can you modify our life support systems? Morrison asked Brooks. She was already working on her portable computer. I can jury-rig something in cargo bays 1 and 2, but it's going to take time, and it won't be perfect. The humidity I can manage with some water vapor generators. Temperature control will be harder. Morrison made a decision that would have seemed insane to most cargo ship captains. Ben, bring us in for a direct dock. We're going to connect our ships. Walsh stared at him. Captain, we don't have compatible docking systems. We're not even sure their hull can handle the stress. Then we'll make it work, Morrison said simply. Tony, get suited up. You and I are going to do an external inspection of their docking port. 20 minutes later, Morrison and Clark were floating in spacesuits outside the alien vessel. Gentle current was larger than it had appeared from a distance, nearly twice the size of the New Horizon. Its hull was covered in intricate patterns that might have been decorative or functional. Captain Clark's voice crackled over the radio. Their docking port is completely different from ours. Look at this. He pointed his flashlight at a circular opening near the front of the ship. It's designed for some kind of flexible connection, not our rigid docking tube. Morrison examined the alien port carefully. We'll have to improvise. Lisa, Are you getting this video feed? See it. Captain Brooks replied from inside the ship. Give me 30 minutes. I think I can modify our docking collar to make a seal. While Brooks worked on the docking problem, Martinez was dealing with a more immediate crisis. 2 more Zephyrians had lost consciousness, and Captain Veltar was barely able to stay awake long enough to answer questions. Captain Morrison Veltar's voice was almost a whisper now. I must tell you something. If we die, please inform the Galactic Council that we were wrong about humans. You have shown us kindness we did not expect. But you're not going to die, Morrison said firmly. Not on my watch. But privately, he was not so sure. Even if they could dock successfully and transfer the aliens to their ship, keeping them alive would be almost impossible. Martinez had warned him that Zephyrian biology was completely different from anything he had studied. I'm basically a first aid medic trying to perform alien surgery, Martinez had said. I don't even know how their organs work. Stone had been trying to contact Earth Command for medical advice, but they were too far from human space for real-time communication. Any messages would take hours to reach Earth, and the response would take hours to get back. The aliens would be dead long before help could arrive. Docking collar modified, Brooks announced. It's not pretty, but it should hold pressure. Den. Bring us in slowly, Morrison ordered. Very slowly. The next few minutes were the longest of Morrison's life. The 2 ships came together with agonizing care, the New Horizons modified docking collar pressing against the alien port. There was a grinding sound as the different systems tried to connect, then a metallic clang as the seals engaged. We have connection, Walsh reported, hull integrity holding on both ships. Pressure equalized, Brooks added. The seal is holding, but I wouldn't trust it in a storm. Morrison was already moving toward the airlock. Carlos, bring your medical kit. Rachel, monitor communications. Lisa and Tony, start getting Cargo Bay 1 ready for passengers. The airlock cycled, and Morrison stepped into the alien ship for the first time. The air was thick and humid, almost like breathing in a sauna. Gravity was slightly lighter than Earth normal, and everything was tinted with a blue-green light that reminded him of underwater scenes. Captain. Veltar was waiting for them in the corridor just beyond the airlock. The alien was about Morrison's height, but much more slender, with blue-scaled skin and large dark eyes. His gill slits were fluttering rapidly as he struggled to breathe the failing atmosphere of his ship. Captain Morrison, Veltar said, his voice weak, but filled with wonder. You actually came aboard our vessel. You are not afraid of us. Should I be? Morrison asked. Many species find us. Disturbing. Our appearance, our need for water, our alien ways. Morrison looked at the dying alien and felt only compassion. You look like someone who needs help. That's all I see. Martinez was already examining the unconscious Zephyrians with his portable scanner. Their vital signs are all over the place, he muttered. Heart rate, brain activity, everything is different from the human baseline. Can you help them? Veltar asked desperately. I'm going to try, Martinez promised. But I need to move them to our ship, where I have better equipment and a proper medical bay. The transfer took nearly an hour. The conscious Zephyrians were able to walk with assistance, but the unconscious ones had to be carried carefully through the narrow docking tube. Morrison found himself supporting a young female researcher who kept apologizing for being a burden. You are not a burden, Morrison told her. You're a person who needs help. But we are strangers to you, she whispered. We are not even the same species. Why do you risk so much for us? Morrison thought about that as he helped her into the modified cargo bay, where Brooks had set up makeshift sleeping areas. The humidity was uncomfortable for humans, but the Zephyrians seemed to breathe easier as soon as they entered the space. Because that's what people do, he said finally. Real people help each other when they can. The young alien looked at him with those large, dark eyes. We were taught that humans were dangerous, that you were violent and cruel. We can be dangerous when we need to be, Morrison admitted. But right now, you don't need us to be dangerous. You need us to be kind. As the last of the Zephyrians was transferred to the New Horizon, Morrison took one last look around the alien ship. It was elegant and peaceful, designed by a species that valued beauty and harmony. Soon it would be drifting empty through space, but its crew would live. Captain Martinez called over the comm system. "You need to get back here. One of them is going into some kind of medical crisis." Morrison sealed the airlock behind him and ran toward the medical bay. The real test was just beginning. Morrison rushed into the medical bay to find Martinez working frantically over the young Zephyrian researcher, Lenara. Her blue skin had turned pale gray, and her gill slits were barely moving. The portable medical scanner was beeping urgent warnings in patterns Morrison had never heard before. "What's happening?" Morrison demanded. "I think she's going into shock," Martinez said, sweat dripping from his forehead despite the cool air. "Her blood pressure is dropping, but I don't know what normal blood pressure should be for her species. The scanner keeps giving me readings that don't match anything in human medicine." Captain Veltar appeared in the doorway, supporting himself against the frame. "Lenara is having breathing problems. Her lung sacs are filling with fluid. It happens when our people are exposed to wrong atmosphere for too long. Can you tell me how to help her?" Martinez asked urgently. I do not know your medical procedures," Veltar admitted helplessly. "Our healers use different methods, different tools." Morrison grabbed the communication system. "Rachel, get me a priority. Channel to Earth Command. I need to speak to any xenobiology expert they can find. Now." "Captain," Stone's voice came back, "we're still too far out. Any signal will take 3 hours each way. Then send the message anyway," Morrison ordered. "Tell them we have dying aliens and need immediate medical advice." Martinez was checking his supplies with growing desperation. "I have basic human medications, but I don't know if any of them are safe for Zephyrians. I could accidentally poison her trying to help." Lenara's breathing became even more labored. Her large dark eyes opened, filled with fear and pain. Tried to speak but could only make soft gasping sounds. "Captain Morrison," she whispered finally, "please do not blame yourself if I die. You have already done more than we ever expected." "You're not going to die," Morrison said firmly, though he was not sure he believed it himself. Engineer Brooks appeared in the doorway. "Captain, I've been monitoring our life support systems. The extra humidity we're pumping into Cargo Bay 1 is putting strain on our recyclers. We can maintain it for maybe 12 more hours before our own air starts getting dangerous." Morrison felt the weight of impossible decisions. If they could not save the Zephyrians quickly, they might all die together in the modified cargo bay. Tony. Morrison called to Clark. "Get on the communication system and try every frequency you can find. Maybe there's another ship out there that can help." "What kind of ship?" Clark asked. "Any ship. Human, alien, I don't care. Someone who knows more about this than we do." Martinez was studying his scanner readings when he suddenly straightened. "Wait. Her symptoms. The fluid in the lungs, the low blood pressure. What if it's not shock? What if it's more like drowning in reverse?" "What do you mean?" Veltar asked. "Humans can drown when water fills our lungs," Martinez explained. "Maybe Zephyrians can drown when their lungs get too dry. She's been breathing our ship's air for hours now. Even with the extra humidity, it's probably much drier than what she needs." Morrison understood immediately. "Can you give her more moisture somehow?" Martinez was already moving. "I can try a saline mist through the oxygen mask. It's not perfect, but it might help." As Martinez worked to set up the makeshift treatment, Stone's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, I'm getting something on the emergency frequencies. It's very weak, but I think it's another ship." "Put it through," Morrison ordered. The signal was full of static, but a female voice came through clearly enough to understand. "This is Dr. Amanda Foster aboard the research vessel Deep Explorer. Received a distress call about alien medical emergency. I am a xenobiology specialist. Can you hear me?" Morrison grabbed the microphone. "Dr. Foster, this is Captain Morrison of the cargo ship New Horizon. We have 12 Zephyrians aboard, and one is in critical condition. Can you help us?" "I can try," came the reply. "What are the patient's symptoms?" Martinez quickly described Lenara's condition, while Foster listened carefully. In the background, Morrison could hear her accessing computer files and consulting references. "It sounds like respiratory acidosis combined with dehydration," Foster said finally. "Zephyrians process oxygen differently than humans. their lung. Tissue needs constant moisture to function properly. Patient needs immediate rehydration, but not with water. You need to use a buffer solution with specific mineral content. I don't have alien medical supplies, Martinez protested. You don't need them, Foster replied. Do you have standard electrolyte solution? The kind used for human dehydration? Yes, but ... Mix it with distilled water at a ratio of 1 part solution to 3 parts water. Add table salt until the mixture tastes like tears. That should be close enough to Zephyrian blood chemistry to help. Martinez was already preparing the solution, while Foster continued her instructions. You need to get the mixture into her bloodstream, but also into her respiratory system. Can you create a fine mist she can breathe? Brooks stepped forward. I can rig something using the ship's environmental systems. Give me 10 minutes. While Brooks worked on the delivery system, Martinez carefully prepared the solution according to Foster's instructions. Veltar watched everything with amazement.
Doctor?
Foster Veltar called into the microphone. How do you know so much about our physiology? I've been studying alien biology for 20 years, Foster replied. Your people shared some medical data with the Galactic Council 15 years ago. I never thought I would need to use it to save lives, but I'm glad I studied it, Brooks finished. Her modifications to the environmental system. Captain, I've connected a mist generator to the air circulation in the medical bay. It should distribute the solution evenly through the air. Martinez activated the system, and within minutes, a fine, almost invisible mist began filling the medical bay. Lenara's breathing seemed to ease slightly, though she was still unconscious. Now for the intravenous treatment, Foster continued. Do you have standard for equipment? Yes, but I don't know Zephyrian anatomy, Martinez admitted. I don't know where their blood vessels are. Captain Veltar stepped forward despite his weakness. I can show you. We have similar anatomy to what your people call fish, but our major vessels run along the neck and upper arms. With Veltar guiding him, Martinez carefully inserted an IV line into Lenara's arm. The blue-green blood that flowed back confirmed he had found the right vessel. Her heart rate is stabilizing, Martinez reported as the electrolyte solution began flowing into her system. Good, Foster replied through the static-filled communication. Monitor her breathing. If the lung fluid doesn't start clearing in the next hour, you may need to try mechanical drainage. How do I do that without killing her? Martinez asked. Very carefully, Foster said. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. The next 3 hours, the crew of the New Horizon worked around the clock to care for their alien passengers. Brooks maintained the environmental systems that were keeping everyone alive. Stone coordinated with Dr. Foster, relaying medical updates and receiving new instructions. Clark and Walsh took turns monitoring the other Zephyrians, making sure none of them developed similar symptoms. Morrison found himself holding Lenara's hand as she drifted in and out of consciousness. Her skin felt cool and slightly damp, nothing like human skin, but he could feel her pulse getting stronger as the treatment worked. Captain Morrison, she whispered when she finally woke up fully. You saved my life. We all did, Morrison corrected. My crew, Dr. Foster, even your captain helped. But you chose to help us, Lenara said. When we called for rescue, we never believed anyone would answer, especially not humans. Especially not humans, Morrison asked, though he suspected. He knew the answer, because we were taught that your species only cares about your own kind. That you are too dangerous and selfish to help strangers. Morrison looked around the medical bay where his crew was working to save alien lives they had never seen before today. Maybe we are dangerous, he said finally. But being dangerous doesn't mean being cruel. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is care about others more than yourself. Lenara squeezed his hand with surprising strength. We were very wrong about humans. Maybe Morrison agreed, but now you know better. 2 days later, Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon watching as 3 ships approached through the darkness of space. The largest was a sleek Galactic Council medical vessel, its white hull marked with the universal symbols of healing. Beside it flew a human rescue ship from Earth Command, bristling with emergency equipment. The 3rd ship was smaller, another Zephyrian vessel that had traveled from their home system to collect their rescued people. All 3 ships are requesting permission to dock, Communications Specialist Stone reported. Grant it, Morrison said. It's going to be crowded, but we can manage. The past 48 hours had been the longest of Morrison's life. All 12 Zephyrians had survived, but keeping them alive had pushed the New Horizons systems to their limits. Brooks had worked around the clock to maintain the environmental modifications, while Martinez had barely slept as he monitored his alien patients. The entire human crew was exhausted. They had done something extraordinary. They had saved lives that everyone said could not be saved. Captain Veltar appeared on the bridge, moving slowly but under his own power. His blue skin had regained most of its natural color, and his gill slits were functioning normally in the ship's modified atmosphere. Captain Morrison, Veltar said formally, "I wanted to speak with you before the other ships arrive." "Of course," Morrison replied. "How are your people doing?" "They are recovering well, thanks to you and your crew." Veltar paused, choosing his words carefully. "But I did not come to talk about their physical condition. I came to talk about something more important." Morrison waited, sensing that the alien captain had something significant to say. "When we sent that distress signal," Veltar continued, "we believed we were sending a message to our deaths. Every species in the galaxy knows that humans are dangerous. Your planet is classified as a death world. Your people are warriors. The Galactic Council teaches that contact with humans should be avoided whenever possible. And yet you called us. Anyway," Morrison observed, "because we were dying, and even a small chance of survival was better than none." Veltar's large, dark eyes met Morrison's. "We expected you to either ignore us or attack us. We never imagined you would risk your own lives to save ours." Morrison shrugged. "It seemed like the right thing to do." "That is exactly my point," Veltar said earnestly. "For you, helping strangers in need is simply the right thing to do. You did not hesitate. You did not demand payment. You did not ask what we could offer in return. You just helped. Wouldn't your people do the same?" Morrison asked. Veltar. It was quiet for a moment. "I would like to think so. But honestly, I am not sure. If we had encountered a ship full of dying humans, would we have risked our lives to save you? Or would we have been too afraid of the dangerous Deathworlders to get involved?" Before Morrison could answer, Stone interrupted. "Captain, the docking procedures are complete. Medical team is ready to transfer our passengers." The next hour was busy with transfers and medical evaluations. The Galactic Council doctors were amazed that all 12 Zephyrians had survived their ordeal. Dr. Amanda Foster, who had finally arrived in person aboard the human rescue ship, was fascinated by the improvised treatments that Martinez had used. "You essentially performed cross-species emergency medicine with no training and minimal equipment," she told Martinez. "This is going to revolutionize how we think about alien medical emergencies." "I just did what seemed logical," Martinez replied modestly. Captain Veltar helped a lot by explaining their anatomy. Young Lenara was among the last to be transferred to the medical ship. Before she left, she found Morrison in the cargo bay, where the crew was cleaning up the makeshift living spaces. "Captain Morrison," she said, her voice much stronger than it had been 2 days ago, "I wanted to thank you personally before I go." "You don't need to thank me," Morrison said. "I'm just glad you're okay." "But I do need to thank you," Lenara insisted. "And I need to tell you something important. When I return to my homeworld, I am going to tell everyone what really happened here. I'm going to tell them that humans are not the monsters we believed." "You to be?" "We're not monsters," Morrison agreed. "But we're not saints either. We're just people trying to do the right thing most of the time." "That is more than most species can claim," Lenara said. "You have shown us that being from a death world does not make you cruel. It makes you strong enough to be truly kind." After the aliens had been transferred to their respective ships, Morrison found himself alone with his crew in the ship's galley. They were sharing a quiet meal and trying to process what had happened over the past few days. "So," Engineer Brooks said finally, "are we going to talk about what we just did?" "We helped some people who needed help," Morrison said simply. "We helped some aliens who needed help," Communications Specialist Clark corrected. "There's a difference." "There?" Morrison asked. "They were in trouble. You were able to help. I don't see how their species matters." Navigator Walsh looked up from his food. "The company is going to want to know why we burned through most of our fuel reserves and arrived 3 days late." "Let me worry about the company," Morrison said. "Anyone who has a problem with what we did can take it up with me personally." Medical Officer Martinez was reading a message on his portable communicator. Captain, Dr. Foster wants to know if we would be interested in participating in a new program she's developing. Cross-species emergency response training. She thinks what we did here could be the basis for new protocols. What do you think? Morrison asked his crew. I think we learned that we can do things we never thought possible when we have to, Brooks said. I think those aliens weren't so different from us after all, Stone added. They were scared. They were dying, and they needed help. That's pretty universal. Even Clark, who had been the most reluctant to get involved, was nodding. I have to admit, it felt good to save lives instead of just hauling cargo. Morrison smiled. Then we'll consider it. 3 weeks later, Morrison received a priority message from Earth Command. The Galactic Council had requested formal recognition of the New Horizon and her crew for their actions in saving the Zephyrian researchers. More importantly, several alien species had reached out to establish better relationships with humanity. The message included a recording from Captain Veltar, now fully recovered and back on duty with a new research vessel.
Captain Morrison,
Veltar's voice said from the speakers, I wanted you to know that your actions have changed how many species view humanity. We are no longer teaching our young ones that humans are dangerous monsters to be avoided. Instead, we tell them that humans are the species you call when no one else will help. The Galactic Council is reconsidering humanity's classification as a dangerous species. Oh, you are still dangerous, make no mistake. But we now understand that you are dangerous to those who threaten the innocent, not to those who need protection. Thank you, Captain Morrison. Thank you for showing us that the strongest warriors can also be the kindest healers. Morrison turned off the recording and looked out at the stars streaming past his viewport. The New Horizon was back to hauling cargo, but somehow the work felt different now. They were not just a freight crew anymore. They were part of something larger, something that connected all thinking beings across the galaxy. The universe was vast and often hostile, but it was also full of people trying to do the right thing. And sometimes, Morrison thought, that was enough to make all the difference. His crew had learned that aliens were not so different from humans after all. They had families, fears, hopes, and dreams. They could be saved by kindness and courage, just like anyone else. And the galaxy had learned something important about humanity. Being from a death world did not make them monsters. It made them strong enough to help others even when it was dangerous or difficult. Perhaps that was the most human thing of all.